This is Czechoslovakia in 1938, the last true democracy in Central Europe, born from the wreckage of the First World War. It had a modern army, mountain fortresses, and the Skoda Works, one of the great arsenals on the continent. Within 6 weeks, all of it would be swallowed without a single shot fired. But along its mountain rim lived 3 million ethnic Germans in lands that had never been part of Germany. Their leader, Konrad Henlein, took his money and his orders from Berlin and summed up the method to Hitler himself: demand so much that we can never be satisfied. In May, Czech reservists manned the border on a rumor of invasion, and the world's press mocked Hitler for backing down. 10 days later, he signed the directive, his unalterable decision to smash Czechoslovakia, ready by October 1st. And Prague was ready to fight. 10,000 pillboxes, their concrete Maginot, barred the frontier. France was sworn by treaty to defend Czechoslovakia. Behind France stood the Soviet Union. On paper, Hitler was surrounded. At Nuremberg in September, Hitler vowed the Sudeten Germans were neither defenseless nor deserted. On cue, revolt flared in the borderlands. Prague answered with martial law, and Henlein fled to Germany. American radio carried the crisis night after night into millions of homes.
I want to assure the statesmen in Paris and London that there are German interests too, which we are determined to take care of.
Then Britain's Prime Minister gambled. Neville Chamberlain, 69 years old, a stranger to flight, boarded an aircraft to face Hitler at Berchtesgaden. London called the policy appeasement: give Hitler what he demands and hope each demand is the last. Within a week, Britain and France had settled it between themselves, and at 2 in the morning, their envoys woke President Benny's. Every district more than half German would go to the Reich. At Godesberg, Hitler raised the price. German troops must march in within days. Czechoslovakia answered with general mobilization. 3/4 of its reserves reported within 24 hours, and in London, Chamberlain's own ministers revolted. On the 26th, in Berlin's Sport Palace, Hitler made the world a promise. The Sudetenland, he swore, was, quote, the last territorial claim I have to make in Europe. And then, to a roaring halt, we want no Czechs. 20 years after the Somme, no one in London or Paris wanted to die for the Sudetenland, and everyone believed the bombers would come through. They dug trenches in the parks and fitted gas masks on children. Then the Prime Minister spoke to the Empire. This is his voice.
How horrible, fantastic, incredible it is that we should be digging trenches and trying on gas masks here because of a quarrel in a faraway country between people of whom we know nothing.
Mussolini stepped in with a compromise, drafted in secret, inside the German Foreign Office. On the night of September the 29th, 4 men signed away a fifth of Czechoslovakia. Its envoys waited next door and were handed the result at 1:30 in the morning. Could Prague fight alone? France had just signed the deal. Russia's treaty bound it only if France fought. The generals judged it suicide. Prague yielded under protest to the world, and the crowds in the streets repeated one bitter phrase: about us without us. That same evening, Chamberlain landed in London, waving a page that carried Hitler's signature. Listen.
This morning, I had another talk with the German Chancellor, Herr Hitler. And here is the paper which bears his name upon it as well as mine.
That night, he called it peace for our time and sent the cheering crowds home to, quote, sleep quietly in your beds. At first light, the tanks moved. Munich had carved the borderland into 5 numbered zones. 5 armies, 5 bites, 10 days. Hitler himself crossed at Asch on day 3 and was cheered through the streets of Eger. By October the 10th, it was done, and not one shot had been fired. Somewhere on that route, a camera found a woman weeping as she saluted. Berlin's papers printed her tears as joy. 4 years later, Washington's War Office reprinted them as grief. Both sides claimed her. She never spoke. One photograph. And the truth itself was already occupied territory. Then the neighbors came to feed. Poland seized the coal town of Teschen within the week. Hungary took the Magyar south by award of Berlin and Rome. The plebiscites promised at Munich were never held. 150,000 refugees fled inland, and President Beneš resigned and went into exile. In London, one voice refused to celebrate. We have sustained a total and unmitigated defeat. Churchill told a furious House. A lady shouted, "Nonsense." He pressed on, "This is only the first sip, the first foretaste of a bitter cup." Because the fortress line, the country's whole means of defense, stood in the land it had just given away. In 1 year, without one battle, the Reich had swallowed Austria in March and the Sudetenland in October. What was left of Czechoslovakia hung defenseless between its jaws. It survived 5.5 months. Then German tanks rolled into Prague, a city where no Germans lived at all. There was no conference this time. The only paper was signed under threat of bombers at 4 in the morning.
Die Tschechoslowakei hat damit aufgehört zu existieren. Die militärische Besetzung verläuft nach.
Regard the agreement signed last night and the Anglo-German naval agreement as symbolic of the desire of our two peoples never to go to war with one another again.